Hi, I'm Chris Stirewalt, and it's time for Power Play. So did you know that there are hundreds, actually hundreds, of human beings, or at least what we believe to be human beings, who have filed to run for president as Republicans? If you think 11's a lot, you go down through the FEC list. There's a lot in there, and we're not even talking about D's nuts. So when does that list for the folks who are in, not just on the debate stage, but in the discussion, in the we need to save space to talk about every candidate, when does that start to change? We've had a second debate. Rick Perry, who was a front runner for a good chunk of 2012 cycle, he's dropped out. What's next? Who's next? When we think of tastemakers, when we think of those who can discern, the discerning who can discern, we think of Joe Trippi always, of course. He's a Democratic strategist. He's a pretty big deal. He used internet to help revolutionize American politics and fill your inbox with desperate pleas for cash. Not for himself, of course. And David Avella is the chairman of GOPAC, which is a Republican farm system, as I like to say it, building up an army of state legislators to then run for jobs, people like Joni Ernst, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's a pretty big deal. All right, it's your team. Who's out? Who's leaving?
Nobody last night locked up the nomination. No one knocked themselves out of contention last night.
I don't mean about the debate, and we're taping this. I don't mean about the debate. I mean, look, Rick Perry could have shown up at the debate. He could have gone to the undercard debate. The debates are part of this, but when we look at who is walking through the valley of the shadow now, who's next? Who's in the next tranche to go?
Senator Paul and Governor Huckabee have to find some way to create some momentum.
You're not taking the low-hanging fruit. You're not going down to like George Pataki, Bobby Jindal, Lindsey Graham.
Senator Paul already has a problem that many of his views are not in line with the majority of Republican primary.
I think you've been taking some of that. I think you've been taking some of that cannabis oil that he was talking about in the debate. Trippi, what do you say?
There's no reason for any of them to get out, as long as they can buy a ticket to the next debate. I mean, I'm talking about a train ticket, a bus ticket,
no,
a plane
because you can't.
ticket.
I mean, the next. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, they're still getting into the. You still
if
get into
CNBC,
the.
And CNBC has the October debate for the Republicans. It's at the end of the month, and it is now not unthinkable that if they were to impose a 1% standard, and I don't, again, they may have already published it, I'm sorry if you did, CNBC, but if they were to propose, let's say, a 1% standard, and nobody with 1%, you got three guys that are already gone. That the first three guys are already gone, right?
Yeah, but look, like the thing that you've got is all these guys, they all have their own target for what their measurement is. Like Santorum in the debate was clearly talking to Iowa. He was the only one who was talking to one state the whole night.
Right.
And so I think, there's no way he's
they ain't talking to him that
there.
much.
But my point is, he goes to Iowa. If it doesn't happen for him, then he's out. But he's not going to get out between now and then, as long as he can get a plane ticket out there.
A lot of people can continue to run for president. Those who are ultimately going to be president, though, have to be building an organization. And you have to do well enough in these debates that keeps your donors happy, that keeps people wanting to continue to go out and knock on doors and go to the Iowa caucuses.
Having done all the campaigns I've worked in, it all comes down to one thing. It's the day you run out of money.
Right.
I mean, that's it. When you can't buy the ticket to Iowa or get into the debate, that's when
I definitely take your point.
The dream finally dies.
For candidates that are state specific, for Chris Christie, who is specific to New Hampshire, for Jindal, for a lot of them who are specific to Iowa, and that would include Huckabee, that would include Jindal, that would include Santorum. So I understand that about the state guys that say, well, I'm all in for this one state where I'm going to start a revolution and change the race. I understand about those guys. But when we talk about somebody like Scott Walker, so here we've got Scott Walker, who's a guy who had pretty decent fundraising, but it's very hard to raise money, and Rubio is in somewhat the same situation. It's very hard to continue to raise money if you say, if your donors say, you're at 2% in the polls, you're at 3% in the polls.
Those guys end up generally running out first, it turns out, because they weren't living off the land. They weren't like, they were front runners for a while, or really rolling.
Or at least this is a test of how well they've husbanded their resources.
Well, yeah, except that doesn't usually happen because you're the front run. You kind of have that Scott Walker. You're in the lead moment. The money's coming in. You hire up big, and you're the big dog, and you run around out there, and all of a sudden it dries up on you. And now the problem is you've got all that infrastructure, all that staff and stuff that's just eating you into the ground.
Sure.
So it could well be. I mean, if you're looking for, I don't think it would be some of the guys that are carrying their own briefcase around,
right.
And it's going to be
Lindsey Graham driving himself to the debate.
Right. I think it's likelier to be a Walker. I don't know about Rubio. I think he's still putting enough together.
Marco had a very fine presentation last night.
So.
He was full command of foreign policy.
I think
he is still the best connector with people.
Yeah, that's why I don't. I wouldn't put.
I think,
Rubio
frankly,
in
both of them are in that same situation. But it's going to be the frog may bump his behind as he goes over the threshold. Gentlemen, we thank you for not bumping your behinds as you came over our threshold. We thank you for being here, and you, Internet, we thank you. You can bump whatever you want. That's cool with us, and we hope you'll come back for more Power Play real soon.